Good morning. Good morning, traders. How are you all doing today? Karibuni sana. Glad you could all join us this fine Tuesday morning. Hope everyone is doing well today. So, for those who are new, my name is Mitch Kaniari, and I'm a trader with Afriforex. I want to welcome you to another Afriforex daily analysis session. Now, you do know during these sessions, we as a Afriforex team, we analyze the markets, we identify what trading opportunities we will be looking at taking for the day, and we do share that information with you. So, as usual, I'm not here alone. We do have the Afriforex team, so they are here in the back office. So feel free to ask any questions or queries in the chat box. The team will be there to respond to you. So let's jump straight into it. So as usual, we'll start off with our watch list and see what changes there have been. So here's our watch list for today. And you can see yesterday and today, there has been a bit of a difference. So yesterday, we were looking for selling opportunities on the Canadian dollar as well as the US dollar. And our focus was to mix and match these two pairs with all the pairs on the buy side. Now you can see today, there has been slight change basically. So we're still going to be looking for selling opportunities on the US dollar. But if you realize the Canadian dollar has moved to the buy side. Now, at the same time, we did end up getting some Australian dollar fundamentals. They did come out earlier in the morning, and we do end up expecting some Australian dollar weakness. So our focus today is going to be on the US dollar and the Australian dollar, mix and match them with all the pairs on the buy side. And as you have noticed, a number of pairs, including gold, silver, and one of the indices has moved to the sell side. But we will end up having a look at that as well. So before we do jump on to today's pairs, let's have a look at the pairs that we did have yesterday, mainly the Canadian dollar pairs that we're not going to be looking at today. We see what worked, what did not work before we do have a look at a few screenshots. Then we will focus on today's pairs. So we'll start off, in fact, just one thing to take note of. Here is the fundamentals that did come out early in the morning for the Australian dollar. So we are expecting that weakness. Then we have some fundamentals later on, nothing really much during the London session. Or at least nothing at all during the London session, only during the US session. So at least we do end up expecting some volatility during the US session, but we will see what happens during the London market. So here's a review of the pair. So we'll start off with the euro against the Canadian dollar. Now remember yesterday, in this kind of pair, our bias was to actually look for buying opportunities. You can see the three areas that we had pointed out. Now, early in the morning, the price was within this particular area, within an area where there's sellers. And we said we need one of two things, either the price to actually go to the upside, reach the upside, or we end up actually getting a pullback coming back in within this support and resistance area. And it does seem that it did the first option where it did manage to actually start going to the upside. If you realize the timing, this was at 10 o'clock, the Frankfurt market open. We saw big boy buyers coming in. You can see even the illustration that I had pointed out, watch out for this particular seller's area, expect some sort of pullback. You can see during the London market open, it did do that. We did get a pullback where later on, we can see the price did manage to actually continue going to the upside. Unfortunately, could not get all the price all the way back down. But you can see initially at 11 o'clock, even right here, there was another opportunity. When once it did break the upside, you can see there was a pullback there. And the trade did work out throughout the London session. Now, the price did end up turning back. As you can see, the time was at 5:30. So this was during the New York Stock Exchange open. That's when we started getting a pullback for the Canadian dollar pairs. And we will have a look at most of them. They ended up actually turning within that particular time. So they did work out during the London session, but during the US session, or at least during the New York Stock Exchange open, that's when the prices did start going down. So unfortunately for us today, this is a pair that we're not going to be focusing on, but we can see it did work out quite well yesterday. Now, the next pair we did have was the Canadian dollar against Swiss franc. Now, in this kind of pair yesterday, our bias was to look for selling opportunities. If you do know the time when the price actually started taking off, that was at 10 o'clock during the Frankfurt market open. We were hoping to see if the price could actually end up giving us a bit more of a pullback to come in for us to look for those sells. It seems that the big boy sellers were more interested in actually taking the price down lower, where you can see the price really did go to the downside. We're hoping to see a pullback. Maybe that's what's happening today. But the fact that the Canadian dollar fundamentals have switched sides, this could potentially give us issues, even though it might still attempt to go to the downside. But at the same time, the fact that both the Canadian dollar and the Swiss franc are both on the same side, we could easily find issues on this. So this trade worked out very nicely during the London session. So from the Frankfurt market open, 11 o'clock, it really did continue taking off to the downside. And you can see a similar situation at 5:30 or so. That's when the prices really started actually giving us that pullback on most of the Canadian dollar pairs. So unfortunately for us, there's a pair that's off our watch list for today. Now, the next pair we did have was the British pound against Canadian dollar. Similar situation with the euro against Canadian dollar, where our bias was to look for buying opportunities, but the price was within an area where there are sellers. So we needed either a pullback to come in or to get confirmation that this level is actually going to be broken, the price reaching and holding above for us to look for those buying opportunities. Now, you can see during the London market open, so in this case, it was at 11 o'clock, the price started actually pushing to the upside. We get the price breaking above. As you can see, based on the illustration, we did want to see the price coming back in and at least testing this particular support and resistance area. Unfortunately, that did not happen. The prices did manage to continue going up throughout the London session, a bit during the US session, and similar situation at 5:30. That's when the prices really did start actually giving us the pullback. So even though the price is back within this area, there's still potential that this trade could actually end up giving us issues, especially how aggressive the sellers came in and the disappearance of the buyers. So even though right now we're back in a support resistance area, the fact that this pair has fallen off our watch list, it could potentially give us some issues. I'm not saying that it would not work, but us, we're trying to look for the trades that have the highest probability. And the fact that the fundamentals are different, that does reduce the probability of that trade working out. So next pair we have is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. Now, yen pairs really did take off quite aggressively yesterday. You can see the three areas that we had pointed out. Now, during the London market open, in fact, this was the Frankfurt market open where the price managed to break this area to the downside. Wanted to see a pullback coming in, the price holding below. It attempted to do that. Unfortunately, we could not get the price all the way back up. But you can see at the timing at 11 o'clock, that's when the price did really breach this area to the downside. You can see in this situation, the price did manage to give us a pullback. This is around midday or so. And you can see the price managed to continue coming down lower. But similar situation at 5:30 for most of these Canadian dollar pairs, or during the New York Stock Exchange open, that's when we did start getting this pullback. So the yen pairs are still showing strength. We did end up having a look at the yen pairs as well, since we did end up having some fundamentals as well early in the morning, which is still showing us some yen strength. So even these could be pullbacks. The prices might continue going down, maybe because the yen is much stronger than the Canadian dollar. But if you want something that has a higher probability, we do have two other yen pairs that we're going to have a look at that could end up giving us some much more potential on those trades. You could easily find, even though there's a sell here, it might only end up coming back towards the support and resistance area and might not continue going to the downside. So that's one thing to take note of. So moving on to the next Canadian dollar pair, we do have the New Zealand dollar against Canadian dollar. Now, on this pair, our bias yesterday was to look for buying opportunities, but it seems this pair was only active during the Asian session. If you do realize that during the Asian session, as you can see, that's when the Asian session did open, there was this activity to come to the downside. But once the London market opened, you can see, as well as the US session, the market just held within this area. No big movements whatsoever. Then again, today during the Asian session, that's when we are getting the price coming to the downside. So unfortunately, this pair did not necessarily give us much of a move. The buyers or sellers were not fully interested in this kind of pair. So unfortunately for us as well, the fact that the price, yes, has pulled back down, potentially attempting to try and get a better price. But unfortunately for us, there's a pair that's off our watch list. Now, last but not least, for the pairs for review, we do have the Australian dollar against the US dollar. Remember, that's a pair that we're not going to be looking at today because the Australian dollar and the US dollar are both on the same side. So yesterday, we realized our bias here was to look for buying opportunities. You can see the three areas that we had highlighted. I pointed out that there was a bias area right here in the middle. So do watch out for that particular area. You can see even the illustration that I had pointed out, potentially as the price was coming down, wasn't too convinced that this was actually a breach to the downside. As you can see, during the London market open, we did get the price breaching and holding above, but unfortunately, the price could not fully take off. And remember, the reason why we point out the market opening time, we realize this was just 4 o'clock. So if you took the trade during the London session and closed it at 4, you'd have found that you'd have gotten a very, very nice trade. Most people would even wonder how you got that very good exit. Most people are so focused on where to enter, but how to exit your trade is equally as important. So the timings will also end up helping you on that. You can see after that, we did end up getting a pullback. Price coming back towards this area, but you can clearly see in this situation, the price actually held below. And the fact that we had some Australian dollar fundamentals coming in, showing us weakness, this pair is going to be off our watch list for today. So before we do jump on to today's pairs, let's have a look at a few screenshots that we did manage to get before we do jump on to the US dollar pairs. So we'll start off here with Bravin. Bravin, happy to see a screenshot here and shout out to you. Did manage to grab a buying opportunity on silver, which is no surprise. We do know you love silver. So you did manage to grab a buying opportunity where the buyers are. You can see the price coming up in your favor very well and already your stop loss is above your entry. So very, very good job on this trade, Praveen. I know you know what you're doing, but keep up the great work as well. So also next, we did get done. Then we get up see your screenshots here as well. Did manage to grab some selling opportunities on gold. We will have a look at gold, but up see managed to grab a nice selling opportunity there. Seems that this might have been during the Asian session, probably. You can see the price has really come down in your favor on your, at least this second trade, not too sure due to the fact that maybe it was a pullback before you got the price coming back down. But I do end up hoping you did manage these trades well. So very, very good job on this trade. And again, you also did manage to grab a buying opportunity on the NAS 100. We know this pair really did give us a scare where it went down quite aggressive, but we know it really ended up going actually to make even new highs. But still, very good job buying with buyers and very good trade management. You have put your take profit within an area where sellers could give you issues. So very, very good job on that. So also next we get James Jibuna. Up to see a screenshot here. You did manage to grab a very nice buying opportunity on the British pound against the US dollar. Very nice buy right there. If I do say so myself, within a buyer's area, price has gone up. You can see already your stop loss is above your entry. In this situation, you have put it at exactly the line. You realize it's within that particular area where the buyers did actually start pushing up from. Remember, we always have seen, well, at least we've seen many times that the price can pull back to that exact same area and still go up higher. So usually in such situations, always try and give it a bit of space to actually end up allowing it to move. Most of the time, we've been stopped out like this many times and it's very painful. So learn from ideally our experiences. Try and just give it a bit of space or even just try it out. Don't necessarily take our word for it. See how it does. And then you should end up at least seeing how that improves your trading in the future. But thank you so much, James, and everyone who managed to send in your screenshot. Really do appreciate it. Remember, if you do manage to send take any trades based on setups that we do share here, feel free to send them in to us. Whether good or bad, we're not necessarily here to only showcase good trades. We want to see what you guys are doing and seeing in what ways we can help. In fact, the ones that trades, even the better. If you don't want us to say your name, we don't need to. We can end up being inconspicuous, but we are here to end up providing value and helping as much as possible. So let's jump on to today's pairs. So today we'll start off with the US dollar pairs, mix and match them with the pairs on this buy side, then move on to the Australian dollar pairs and do the same thing. So we'll start off here with the euro against the US dollar. Now, yesterday our bias was to look for buying opportunities. Just hide this slightly. So yesterday our bias was to look for buying opportunities. You can see the three areas that we had pointed out, even based on the illustration that we had mentioned here. You can see the price had pulled back quite nicely towards the support and resistance area. Remember, I did mention that we want to see signs of big boy buyers showing up, and they did end up showing up during the Frankfurt market open, but we got a very nice probe. The price gave us a pullback, and you can see at exactly 11 o'clock, the price had given us a pullback from the probe, actually holding above. I think if I do end up going down to the 3-minute time frame, you can be able to see a lot more detail within this particular area. So you can see 11 o'clock, that's when this price did manage to come to the upside right here, meaning this was just a probe. And right here, we did end up getting the pullback coming back in within a very nice support and resistance area. And if you do note the time, that was at exactly 11 o'clock during the London market open. And you can see from then on, the price really did continue going to the upside. Now, in terms of management, obviously, we did mention that the top area is definitely an area that would give us issues. And you can clearly see it did end up giving some problems to not really break that particular high. And this was around 4 o'clock during the US market open, where we started actually getting our pullback between 4 and 5:30. So today, you can clearly see the price has come down a bit lower. Remember the point I mentioned yesterday, the fact that sometimes if the price, you get a particular price right here and the buyers attempt to go up and they can't, potentially we need a better price. And maybe right now, that's exactly what's happening. Maybe everyone was jumping in on buys. Right now, the fact that the price has come down below here, majority of people are starting to think that it is a sell. But for us, we definitely know it's still going to be a buying opportunity for us on the euro against the US dollar. So we will focus on these three areas that we did end up having yesterday. So aggressive buyers area is still within this area. So remember, as long as we're holding above the red support and resistance area, our buyers is going to be looking for buying opportunity. Now we do have a middle support and resistance area here where price was breached yesterday. But remember, the fact that the price has come down lower, it's one of two things that could happen. We could end up actually getting the price coming back in within the buyer's area before we do see the buyers actually coming to the upside. Or alternatively, you can see the fact that the price has slowed down within here. Potentially, there's maybe a small support and resistance area within this particular area right here, where you can see price has potentially bounced off that location. So So rather than jumping in your buying opportunities there, you could end up waiting, getting confirmation, because once a price actually comes back in and we see aggressive buyers coming in and the price falls above this area, I think this one would be much safer to actually look for that opportunity. But remember, you do need to be open to both options to happen, so you're not necessarily surprised when one thing happens. So at least if something happens, you are prepared and knowing what you should do. If something else happens, you know what the best thing to do is at that time. So hope that game plan is clear and what we're looking at doing on the euro against the US dollar as we move on to the next US dollar pair, which is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. Now, similar situation on the other Swiss franc pair. You can see yesterday our bias was to look for selling opportunities. The price was within a seller's area, quite close. We wanted to see the price coming in a bit higher. Seems the big boys were more interested in taking the price down lower. Similar situation at 11. The Frankfurt market opened, at 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. in the morning. We did end up seeing the price coming down very aggressive right here. We did get a pullback, and you can see we did have a small support and resistance area here. That once the big boys breached it to the downside, we did get a pullback coming back in. You do know the time, that was at exactly 11 o'clock. You can see after that, the price really did end up dropping to the downside. So today, the bias here is still going to be looking for selling opportunities, even though the sell worked out quite nicely during the London session. But similar situation during the US session at 4, that's when we started getting our pullback. Now, the pullback has come in quite deep, but that is okay. Remember, everyone was jumping in on sells. Right now, not everyone is thinking that it's a sell. A few people have now switched their biases and are now starting to look for buys, which is okay for us. Because remember, we will still be focusing on the selling opportunities as long as we're holding below this red support and resistance area. So we'll be focusing on these locations. Right now, where price is at, we'll wait to see what ends up happening. We are technically within some sort of small support and resistance area here. You can see it's definitely a level that has been respected many times before in the past. So we'll watch out what happens within here. But the fact that we've not seen any big boy sellers just yet, we're not necessarily going to start jumping in on those trading opportunities. The game plan will be the same. Also, potentially we'll end up getting the price coming back in the main sellers area before we're able to look for the sell. Alternatively, if we do find the sellers actually coming back in quite aggressive and we get the price actually holding below this area, then we should be able to continue looking for selling opportunities within the US dollar against the Swiss franc. But do wait for what ends up happening. You can clearly see the way the sellers came down aggressive between the London session, but it's taken 2 sessions, both the US session and the Asia session, for the price to come up. And it's not yet even anywhere near where the price actually started from. So you definitely know the sellers are still in control here, but we need to wait for the sellers to actually show interest again. So hope the game plan is clear, at least on what we're looking at doing on the US dollar against the Swiss franc as we move on to the next US dollar pair. So the British pound against the US dollar is the next pair we're looking at. Similar situation. Yesterday, the bias was to look for buying opportunities. You can see a similar situation where we did point out, we do go down to the 3-minute time frame. You can be able to see some detail here where the sellers were coming down. You can even see based on where price was initially when we're discussing this market. We wanted to see whether the price could come down, give us some sort of probe or price action signal. And we can see the price came down. And at 11 o'clock, that's when the price showed us big boy buyers coming in. Unfortunately, we could not get the pullback coming in. But even if you did end up looking for a trading opportunity after that, you can clearly see the price really did continue going to the upside. But ideally, should have made sure to manage your trade within the top area, because you can clearly see right now, the price did not necessarily convincingly reach that level. So you can see at 4 o'clock, if you do end up managing your trade within the market opening times, you could easily see that that buy would have got out within the top and actually maximized on that trade. You can see later on, we actually started getting a pullback. Price is back within the buyer's area that we did have yesterday. So we'll still be focusing on the same areas. So potentially we could be entering into some sort of range between these two levels, because we can see the fact that they have respected these levels multiple times. But remember, they didn't point out that there's the alternative that this price is not necessarily good enough to actually make a new high. So there could be the option where the price would actually potentially come down a bit lower, maybe incite a few people to now start looking for sells. Anyone who was jumping in on their buys, all their stop losses were going to be within here. So once the price gets to here and everyone starts jumping in on sells, don't be surprised that within a buyer's area, the price could end up coming back in and showing us evidence that it's holding above before we're able to look for the buy. I've seen that multiple times in the chart, and that's something that you should not necessarily get too surprised about. But we wait to see what happens. Similar situation. Since we're within an area where the buyers, we want to see when the big boy buyers are actually going to show interest. You can see yesterday, they did give us signs initially when they were coming back in. So right now, let's wait to see. If we don't see any sign within this area, then chances are we could be coming back down lower. You can see we have multiple buyers areas here. We have a buyers area here before we do reach our main and extreme buyers area at the bottom. So hope that's clear, at least what we're looking at doing on the British pound against the US dollar. Just be a bit patient for you to see whether or not the big boys are actually going to come back in. As we move on to the next pair here, which is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. Now, yesterday, the bias was to look for selling opportunities. You can see during the Frankfurt market open, the price really did drop to the downside, as well as during the London market open. Fortunately, within this area, it was within an area where the bias could have been a bit difficult to actually grab this selling opportunity. But you can see later on, around 4 o'clock during the US market open, we did end up starting to get our pullback. Now, one thing to remember, or at least let me point out the levels, and you'll realize that the levels are still the same. And I bet a number of you are wondering why are the levels still the same after the market really did go down quite aggressive yesterday. For us, we're still seeing that this level has actually not yet been broken, especially when you go up to a higher time frame. One thing we're not surprised about is ranges probe a lot. So you'll find when the market is ranging, it's never going to be perfect, just following the same lines. You can clearly see within this area, the price came down, but never held below. The fact that it never held below, there's still a possibility this price can still even come back to the top of the range before we see the price come down. So that's the reason why we're still respecting the same levels. Even if we do find a selling opportunity within here, do make sure you manage your trade within this location. You can see even if the sellers have come down aggressive, we need a bit more strong sellers to actually be able to come down, or at least see signs that the buyers are not going to be showing any more interest. So within here, our buyers is still going to be looking for sells. Right now, we're within a very interesting area where there's potential selling opportunities. So let's wait to see. Potentially, these are the big boys attempting to come back. We see the buyers struggling, then we could potentially end up finding a very nice selling opportunity. But if you've noticed, based on yesterday, on the review of the pairs, you'll realize that the markets are moving within specific times. So 10 o'clock and 11, you can see some signs of whether or not the big boy is actually going to be interested in this pair. So we did right now, even though the price is coming down, we've seen many people being incited by such things. If it's not yet time, if it's not yet 10, then there's a probability that this could just be inciting people, and you could easily find the price going all the way back up to the top of the range. Because remember, the best place to look for a trade within the range is still at the top. So we'll wait to see what ends up happening on this one, but it does look very, very interesting for us. So moving on to the next US dollar pair we do have. Right here, we have the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. Yesterday, our bias was to look for buying opportunities, and it is the same situation today. You can see we did end up getting a pullback coming in. The price was within this buyer's area. And we did end up starting to see during the Frankfurt market open and the London market open, the buyers actually starting to come back in. But we're hoping to see the price being able to get all the way to the top area. Unfortunately, it could not, but it did end up working very nicely. If you look at the market during 11 o'clock, or if you manage your trade at 4 o'clock, you can clearly see you are still maximized on that move to the upside. But from the US session, we can see the price came back down. This level was still holding, but during the Asian session, it seems that potentially we need a better price than this. As we have pointed out, and based on the higher time frame, we are still within an upwards move. So right now, maybe this price was not necessarily good enough, and we are coming down to get a better price. Remember, we need maybe to incite a few more people to look for sells before the buyers do continue going to the upside. And if you can end up looking in the back, or at least in the past, and back testing and seeing that situations where sellers, even though they've come down aggressive, they're just here to incite for more people to look for sells before the buyers actually take off to the upside. So in this situation, we'll be waiting to see something similar to happen on the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar, still respecting the same areas that we did end up having yesterday. So we have the main sellers area right there that we need to watch out for. We have a conservative area that have been reached to the downside. So, and we have the main buyers all the way down here. So what's most likely to happen is we could end up getting the buyers coming in a bit aggressive. We see the sellers coming down slowly, then you might easily find the buyers actually able to take off to the upside. And remember, we do end up having this option, right? The price is able to come out and hold above this area. Then at that point in time, we definitely know these sellers have been incited, the buyers are back, and we should be able to go for a higher price. So I hope that is clear on the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. As we move on to the last pair that we do have for the US dollar pair, which is the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. Now remember, yesterday this pair was not on our watch list because both the US dollar and the Canadian dollar are both on the same side. So today we are on opposite sides. We will be looking for selling opportunities on this currency pair. But one thing to take note of, remember when pairs are actually on the same side, what's most likely to happen is they will end up actually ranging, bouncing between two levels. So one thing to take note of, you'll notice that the US dollar against the Canadian dollar has actually been ranging for quite a while, actually just bouncing between these two same levels for quite a while. So you can clearly see the amount of probes that end up happening in the market spiking between those levels. But overall, we will still be looking for selling opportunities. And if the market is ranging, the best place to look for yourself is at the top of the range. So right now, the buyers are coming in aggressive. Let's wait to see how far the buyers can get to. Once we do end up seeing aggressive sellers coming in, then we should be able to look for selling opportunities. At least some sort of probe or price action signal is also a good idea to look for within those particular areas. And remember, if it lines up within the market opening times, that just adds more confluence to your trade actually being able to work out. So hope that's clear, at least on the game plan, pretty straightforward. We're in a range, buy or at least buy at the bottom and sell at the top. But in this case, since we are selling, we will be selling from the top of the range. So we'll move on right now to the the Australian dollar pairs. As you can see, we've mixed and matched the US dollar with all the pairs on the buy side. So right now, we're going to move on to the Australian dollar and do the exact same thing. So we'll start off here with the euro against the Australian dollar. Here, our bias is going to be looking for buying opportunities, brand new into our watch list. You can see the market does seem to be trending to the upside. So we'll be focusing on these three areas to potentially look for buying opportunities. So we have aggressive buyers all the way down here at the bottom. So we know as long as we're holding above this particular area, we should still be looking for buying opportunities. Right now, what's potentially happening is we are getting a pullback, or at least the pullback has started coming in. We've not necessarily gotten the price to actually come down as low as we wanted. And one thing you'll realize is when you ask yourself, this move to the upside coming in here does not necessarily look like that big boy coming back in. So there's a potential that we could end up getting the price coming back down a bit lower before we're able to look for those buying opportunities. So one of two options could happen. The price could still come back down a bit lower. Once it does that, most people will start jumping in on selling opportunities because remember, people have seen this move to the upside. Most people chase the market. So if all those people jumping in on buys, their stop losses are just below here. So if the price comes all the way down within here and they get stopped out, they will switch to a seller. And at that point in time, we do see the buyers actually started coming back in because remember, in order for us to buy, we need people who are willing to sell. And that's the reason why the market incites a lot of people to actually go in one direction in comparison to another. So in this situation, let's wait to see what ends up happening. But remember, you need to be open to both options happening. So if the price is able to break this area to the upside and we see the price holding above, then we should be able to continue looking for buying opportunities on the euro against the Australian dollar. So hope that is clear. Moving on to the next Australian dollar pair we do have. Here we have the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc, brand new entry on our watch list. And overall, here our bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities. Similar situation where we can clearly see yesterday the bias came down quite aggressive to the downside. Right now, we need a pullback coming in. Yes, the pullback has come back in, but if you look at the way the sellers are coming in, it's a similar story. But we'll wait for one of two options. Either the price is actually going to give us that pullback coming back in before we're able to look for the sell, or alternatively, maybe this was actually good enough. Maybe the big boys have actually come in, but looking for any trading opportunity in the middle of these two areas does seem to be quite dangerous because we could end up easily finding the price breaking this area to the downside. If it holds below, then that would be much safer to look for your selling opportunity. At least at that point in time, these buyers areas will not give you any more issues. So let's wait to see what ends up happening on the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc as we move on to the next Australian dollar pair. So brand new entry on our watch list right here, we have the British pound against the Australian dollar. You can see the market making new highs, definitely trending to the upside. But since we are looking for buying opportunities, if you realize where we are, well, we are within an area where the sellers, we always want to buy with buyers and sell with sellers. So in this situation, since we are looking for buying opportunities, we need one of two things. Either the price needs to give us a pullback to come back in within one of the buyer areas, so at least we have to identify before we do see the price going to the upside. Alternatively, if we do end up getting this seller's area not really reacting, and the buyer is able to break this area to the upside, remember, we need to see a pullback, get confirmation the price is holding above before we're able to look for those buying opportunities on the British pound against the Australian dollar. So hope that is clear on GBP AUD as we move on to the next Australian dollar pair. But also at the same time here, remember, we're also dealing with the Japanese yen. And we did end up having some yen strength coming in. So today, buyers here is going to be looking for selling opportunities. You can clearly see how aggressive the market really did move to the downside yesterday. We are starting to get a pullback coming in, but this mainly, I want to see at what point in time, since we have an area of interest right here, at what point in time are these big boys, sellers, actually going to come back in? Because we can clearly see, you're looking at the way the sellers are coming down, very strong, very strong. You can see the strength of the move. And the next time they came down, they were coming down much weaker. And look at the way the bars were coming up, not necessarily as strong, but the next push to the upside was much stronger than the first time. So you definitely know, even right here, the fact that we've not seen any big boy sellers just yet, the buyers are the ones who are still giving the pullback, and the big boy sellers are not yet hitting. So for us, we need to be a bit patient on this one, potentially wait for maybe the market to go up, pretend it's going to the upside, and we might find the price actually coming down lower, giving us some sort of global price action signal. Maybe it needs to incite a few more people to start jumping in on buys, because right now it's obvious to everyone who ends up looking at the chart that this price is going to go down. So most people are jumping in on sells. And remember, not everyone can make money if everyone is selling, because in order for you to sell, you need people who are willing to buy. And at the same time, if you want to buy, you need more people who are willing to sell. So it's a similar situation. Maybe right now we need to incite a few more buyers before these big boy sellers decide to come back in. So let's wait to see what ends up happening there. Now, moving on to the next pair we do have. Here we have the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. Now, in this situation, apologies, I need to adjust this slightly. That was mixed up a bit. Remember, we are looking for sells on the Australian dollar. So this is the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. It's a similar pair where we can clearly see this price has just been ranging between these two levels, bouncing between there. And the fact that we are looking for selling opportunities on the Australian dollar, we will, if you can clearly see, we will be looking to see how we can end up grabbing those sells. Obviously, the fact that the price is ranging, the best place to look for the sells is at the top of the range. But right now, the fact that we're back within the area where the buyers were at least at the bottom of the range, will not necessarily encourage you to start jumping in on buying opportunities, especially since we are meant to be looking for sells. There could be a buying opportunity available, but we've seen many times that if the big boys are really strong, you could easily find that left level ends up getting broken, and the price comes back in and falls below, then we could easily find a very nice selling opportunity. Alternatively, the buyers do end up reacting. I would not necessarily look for the buy, but I would not be surprised if it does do this. But if we do end up finding some sort of global price action signal within one of these areas, either here or till the top area there, so either here or within the trade support and resistance area, then there could be some potential trading opportunities there. So hope that is clear on the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar as we move on to the next and last currency pair we do have. So right here, we have the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. Now, we did end up having this currency pair yesterday, but we were meant to be looking for buying opportunities. Remember, both the Australian dollar and the Canadian dollar were on opposite sides yesterday. They are still on opposite sides, but they have both switched. So yesterday, since we were looking for buying opportunities, these were the levels. But today, we will be looking for selling opportunities because both the fundamentals have switched. Now, yesterday, we wanted to see if we could grab those buying opportunities within this buyer's area. You can see the price just kept on holding within this buyer's area, hardly going to the upside or the downside. You can clearly see the market was hardly showing any activity throughout the whole day. We did end up getting some small move to the downside, but the main move ended up happening during the Asian session, where the price now really started coming to the downside. So for today, our bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities, and we have adjusted the level slightly. So aggressive sellers all the way at the top, we have a conservative area right here in the middle, and we have the buyers all the way down at the bottom. So let's wait to see what ends up happening here. The fact that we've come down, the main thing for us we want to see is potentially a pullback coming in this support and resistance area for us to get some global price action signal. And remember, if it lines up within the market opening time, but there's also the potential that this price could still just continue going to the downside. Remember, if we do or at least we are able to get the price breaching and holding below this area, then we should be able to continue looking for selling opportunities on the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So hope that is clear. Let's wait to see what ends up happening. Right now, we're within a buyer's area and we're looking for sells. So we need a pullback to come in or a breach to the downside. So hope that is clear. As you can clearly see, we've mixed and matched all these pairs, the US dollar and the Australian dollar pairs, with the pairs on the buy side of our watch list. So right now, we're going to have a look at the indices as well as gold and silver. So you can see yesterday our focus was all on buys, but you can see a number of them have moved except for the US 30. So right now we'll start off with the NASDAQ, so the NAS 100. Now, yesterday, our bias here was to look for initial buying opportunities, but remember, I did point out that we are within a tricky situation, or at least an area where the market could end up doing one thing or the other. Because remember, we did end up getting the price breaching to the downside. Did mention if we get the price confirming that it's holding below, then we should be able to continue looking for selling opportunities. Now, it did end up continue going down lower. Unfortunately, we did not get the pullback that we wanted. You can't see even the illustration that we had pointed out here. Within this red support and resistance area, if the price was able to come back in and hold above, the buys would still be on. But if it managed to actually hold below, then we definitely look for sell. Sometimes this is what happens, even though you want the market to come within a certain area, sometimes they run away, but it's okay. There will be more opportunities. It's a matter of you seeing something that you can consistently repeat each and every day that will give you a good chance of actually trade working out. So in this situation, the fact that the market breached and held below, but we've still not been able to actually come back in and go above that level, we definitely know we have switched our bias now. So overall, we will be looking for selling opportunities. Still, as long as we're holding below this red support and resistance area, our bias will be looking for sell. So right now, the fact that the price is holding above this area is not necessarily the best sign for us. So it's one of two things. Either this price needs to actually go to the upside a bit, comes back within there, maybe incites a few more people to look for those buying opportunities before the sell do come in. Or alternatively, because we can't clearly see the way the buyers initially started out, especially from this particular price. You can see they pushed the upside. They pushed up quite strong. The sellers came down, but look at their next push to the upside. They do seem to be quite struggling, but also at the same time, we're also not seeing the sellers really doing much. So that's the reason why we need to see two things: the seller coming in strong and the buyer struggling. So that's the reason why in this situation, potentially we could end up getting the price able to come down lower and hold below this particular area, then we should be able to continue looking for selling opportunities on the US 100, or at least the NASDAQ. So hope that's clear. And remember, if the price breaks and holds above the red SNR, we will actually start looking for buying opportunities. Remember here, we're purely technical. It's not a matter of if it breaks above or it falls off your watch list. These pairs will always be on our watch list. It's just a matter of where we are depending on price. So if we're below the red SNR, we will be looking for sales. If we do go above the red SNR, we will be looking for buying opportunities. So hope that's clear. We will move on to the next pair. Right here, we have the Dow Jones. Now, the Dow Jones really did fool a lot of people yesterday because we did end up getting a huge spike to the downside, especially based on a larger time frame. You just see it's just a huge wick that ended up happening. However, yesterday we did want to end up looking for buying opportunities and our line in the sand. So we did end up having a level within this particular area right here. The price did look as if it was breaking to the downside. We did want one of two things. If the price is able to come back in and hold below, then we should be able to continue looking for sales. But if the price is able to come back in and hold above, then at that point in time, we will actually start looking for buying opportunities. So in this situation, it just ended up inciting a lot of people to start looking for sales. Because remember, in this situation, this market has been going up. Everyone was jumping in on buying opportunities. And remember, in this situation, most of the time, there's a high probability that since these are the buyers who pushed up, if the price goes below that area, guaranteed there were so many people jumping in on selling opportunities, not realizing that the sales should have happened at the top there, not necessarily once the price actually breaks a level. And that's the reason why we're not such a big fan of breakout trading. We'd always rather wait for a pullback because this was just to incite very many people to start looking for sales. And you can see, even if anyone sold within here, all those sellers, their stop losses were all above this particular area, even if they wanted to keep it safe. And you can clearly see the prices came and actually just stopped all those sellers out. And that's the thing. In order for the sellers to work, you need buyers. In order for the buyers to work, you need sellers being incited. So you do not want to be on the other side of it. Because remember, trading, there's no new money. So when one person loses, another person makes, right? So it's a zero-sum game. So in order for you to make money, technically, you need to be smarter than the other person, or at least know what it is that they're doing. So in this situation, the price really did end up inciting people for, in fact, this situation at 5:30, that's when the New York Stock Exchange really did come into the upside, really short above. You didn't miss that opportunity. You can see later on, there was a small opportunity right here, but might have been within not necessarily the best timing. So as you can clearly see, this was around 7 o'clock, where the price managed to break this area to the upside and held above. You can clearly see the price managed to still continue going to the upside. So the fact that the price broke above, we're still going to be looking for buying opportunities, but we have adjusted the level slightly. So overall, we'll be focusing on our buys based on these 3 areas. So aggressive buyers all the way down here at the bottom, and we do have our conservative area right here at the top. So for us right now, let's wait to see if we can end up getting some sort of pullback coming in. We can get this pullback coming back in within this support and resistance area. Do see some sort of probe or price action signal. We'll focus on this level, but there's also a possibility the price can come back down to the red support and resistance area before we're able to look for those buying opportunities. So do watch out for that. But the main thing we need right now is pullback to come in before we're able to look for those buying opportunities. Because remember, right now, the fact that the price has gone up, what is everyone doing? Everyone is jumping in on buys. So don't start jumping in on your buys all the way at the top. The best place to jump on the buys is at the bottom. So that's the reason why there's also the possibility the price can come back down a bit lower within this particular area, incite a few more people to jump in on sales before you do end up seeing the price going to the upside. So watch out for that on the US 30. Now, moving on to the next pair we do have, right here we have silver. Now, on silver yesterday, our bias was to look for buying opportunities, but that was based on our red support and resistance area, which was within this particular area. So remember, we did mention as long as we're holding above that location, we will be looking for buying opportunities. Now, during the London session, we can clearly see at 11 o'clock and 10:30. Sorry, between 10 and 11, you can clearly see the price did manage to go all the way up, back within the first support and resistance area. But if you do note the time, when the price was back within that location, was at 4 o'clock. So if you didn't take the trade, or at least the buy, it mainly worked out during the London session until the US session. But once the US session came in, you can see the sellers really did come in aggressive. The buyers attempted to hold, but you can see later on the price really did come down aggressive. And once we broke that level to the downside, even though the price was all the way down here, it was not broken until this price came back within this area and we saw the price actually holding below, getting some sort of rejection. That confirmed to us that that level has been broken. And if that's the case, then our bias now has fully been switched. So overall, we'll be looking for sells. Our aggressive sellers area is right there. So as long as we're holding below that red SNR, our bias will be to look for selling opportunities. So you can see these are the 3 areas we'll be focusing on. Just because we're held within right here doesn't mean that it's just time to go looking for yourself. Remember, we need to see the aggressive sellers coming in. So chances are we could end up easily getting a market giving us some sort of small pullback within here. Maybe during the US market open, can clearly see that's when it's really mainly active. That's possibly when we could end up finding a very nice selling opportunity. So one thing to take note of between silver and gold, have a look at them within the market opening times. If they're within a buyer's or seller's area, that could give you a clue of what direction the market could actually go at that time. So hope that's clear on silver. As we move on to the last pair we do have, which is gold. Now on gold, you can see a similar situation, although this one is slightly tricky. Can clearly see the area that we had yesterday. The price did manage to break the downside, and we can see the price is actually holding below this particular area. So ideally, that's one of the reasons why we did end up switching our bias for this one. Even though yesterday, during the London market open, we did the same thing with silver, where at 10 o'clock, we did manage to get the price coming up higher. Unfortunately, could not get all the way to the top, found some sort of sellers area that did end up reacting early in the morning during the Asian session. And you can see that's where the price did end up reacting from. This row at least was a bit earlier, around 3 o'clock. So not necessarily during the US session open, but the US session did end up coming in after breaching this area to the downside, and it did manage to continue coming down lower. So overall today, with gold, our bias here is going to be looking for selling opportunities. We will focus on these 3 areas to look for sales. The aggressive sellers all the way at the top. So as long as we're holding below that area, our bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities. Right now, potentially what we need is a pullback to come in. So one of 2 things can happen. Either the pullback can come in within this support and resistance area before we're able to look for selling opportunities, or alternatively, we could end up getting this price actually being able to break this area to the downside. To get the price actually holding below, then we should be able to continue looking for selling opportunities. So hope that is clear for everyone. As we can see, we'll mix and match all the pairs on the sell side with the pairs on the buy side. In terms of fundamentals, nothing much happening during the London session. As you can see, we had some news at 8 for the yen, but after that, the next piece of news is at 4:30. So watch out for these market opening times. So for 4:30, you could end up actually finding the market taking off, but do watch out for those fundamentals. So I guess that's it from me And from us, I'm not seeing any questions. I'm seeing Daniel Samir saying, good morning, Afriforex team. Always a pleasure to be here. Glad to see you, Daniel. And I'm seeing Ivy Wanyama as well. Glad that you're here as well. You're saying hello there. And I'm also seeing Jack Morioki saying much appreciated for the wonderful job as always. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Ivy, and thank you, Daniel, for joining us today. Dan Pickett, you did end up getting some nice trades. So very well done on that. Hope to see more screenshots from you guys as well. So I guess that's it from me, not necessarily seeing anything else. I want to thank you guys so much. Hope you guys have found value in this session. Try to really go as much detail as possible to give you guys as much value as possible. Remember, if you do have any questions or queries, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details are there in the chat box. If you do want education, you can also reach out to us for that. We do have the AMP course, should be starting out next, it's starting next week or the next week after that, sorry. So next month, basically, we will have the first class of the AMP. So if you are interested, feel free to reach out. We'll put a link right there in the chat box as well, but also you will look to see if you can put it in the description. Or you can end up just going to afriforex.com and you should find all those details there. Anyway, I want to thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate it. Hope you have an amazing trading day. Happy trading. God bless and bye for now. Cheers, guys.